Welcome to episode 39 of the Talking Friars podcast. I'm your host, Ben Fadden, here with Jacob Zimmermann. The day before the Padres, second half of the season gets underway, or supposed to get underway in Washington, things might change. Today, we will talk about just kind of previewing the second half, what needs to go right, what obviously can't go wrong. And the second half schedule, I think, is going to play huge in determining if the Padres obviously win the division or make the playoffs as a first wild card or second wild card. Obviously, you prefer to win the division, but being the one seed in the wild card doesn't hurt because you get that one game at home. But first off, let's just start with what we've heard recently today due to COVID. The New York Yankees, again, they've had a second outbreak this season. The first one was earlier in the year. Now it seems like it's like six players. There were three that were placed on the COVID IL list, similar to what Paddock was on earlier this year, and Tatis and Myers. Those were different times, but Nestor Cortez Jr. was one of them. He was like a starter for them. And then there was three that were later today that were it's not definitive that they have it, but they were put through protocol.
Yeah.
And that is Aaron Judge. He's the biggest name. Kyle Higashioka, and Gio Urshela. So that's their backup catcher, the starting right fielder, and the starting third baseman. Red Sox was supposed to be the only game on today on ESPN. It was going to get a lot of attention, obviously, because that's like the only sporting event today. And that didn't happen, obviously, because of this COVID, kind of outbreak. So we'll see what comes from that. The big storyline there, obviously, is Aaron Judge being in protocol because he was at the All-Star game. That's how this affects the Padres. Aaron Judge, obviously the All-Star game, it's not just the AL hanging out with the AL. Obviously, they spend more time together than people in the National League. But at the same time, the All-Star games, there's a lot of, during the Home Run Derby, you saw Tatis and Manny on the American League side, that same side that Judge was on. So that could affect the Padres definitely, going in. Juan Soto, he was Max Scherzer. Those were all stars in the National League for the Nationals, the next team the Padres will play. So I think all of these players that made the All-Star game are going to get tested now. And so we'll have to see what happens from that. But we still don't know. I mean, obviously the game tomorrow at around 4 o'clock Pacific time scheduled to be played in Washington, D.C. But we just don't know yet if anything will change on that.
Yeah, I mean that kind of came out of nowhere. You haven't heard about like COVID things and for a while now. It seems like throughout the entire league, it's really gotten a lot better. And then all of a sudden this happens, and it's around baseball's biggest and brightest stars from every team, pretty much. The whole All-Star game,
Yep.
and you don't know how that's going to affect your team. It could be the Padres, the Dodgers, anyone. Everyone that's around. The Yankees who got tested positive. It's unfortunate for everyone, especially sports fans in general, because it could technically put a halt into the season if it's that bad. We don't know if it's that bad because I'm sure a lot of them are vaccinated, or they weren't as close to them. They were just in the general area. But yeah, it's going to be interesting when these because I'm sure they're all going to get tested. I'm sure they're going to make sure that they don't have it, or if they do have it, they follow protocol. But it's going to be interesting to see who has it and who doesn't, and how it affects this rest of the season, or at least the coming back to it after the All-Star break.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I think this is just a good reminder that while Petco Park's opened, when we're going to Padre games, no one's really wearing masks. Everyone's acting like it's normal again. They're just it was like a switch flipped. Like one day, okay, it's socially distanced, season ticket members pretty much only. And then, the next homestand, it's, full capacity. Everyone's walking around like, it seems like nothing's happened. And I get all of these people are vaccinated, but at the same time, I saw Rich Eisen on social media, he got COVID and he was double vaxxed. So this thing still is going around. It's definitely not, done yet. I don't think it will be done in a very long time. It'll probably end up being a flu shot thing where we just get it every
Yeah.
year. But this is not done. I'm more of, the caution, precautionary, wear the mask, going from the parking lot to Petco. Then when I sit down in my seat, I'm kind of more comfortable because you're not, going right next to a bunch of people walking, on the streets and whatnot. So I just think that don't get rid of your mask right now. It's definitely,
Yeah.
it's not over yet. Uh, the vaccine, obviously, I think it's some people on the Padres, even we know who that is. No need to say names of who don't want it or have not gotten it. Um, and that's gonna be it could come as a negative to them if it happens, because when you do have the vaccine, it seems like it doesn't. I just want to make it clear, having the vaccine does not prevent you from getting it. But if you do get it, here's the difference. You get it, then it will allow you to not have, not feel as bad, not have all of these reactions. You probably won't end up having to go into a hospital
Yeah.
where that might happen if you did have it. But again, this is a baseball Padres podcast, so I don't want to get too much into the weeds of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's still, it's still a good lesson, and it involves the Padres, involves baseball, because we don't know if a couple teams will even be playing this weekend. Because moving on to the Padres, tonight, Austin Nola, he's been on the IL with the knee injury, hasn't really been healthy all year. He is on his first game back for a rehab assignment in AAA with the El Paso Chihuahuas. Reese Kinnear making his AAA debut, which is definitely weird. He's making his
Yeah.
AAA debut after he makes his big league debut. But the bigger story, obviously, is Austin Nola. This is definitely a good step in the right direction. Webster Rivas hasn't been terrible, but at the same time, Austin Nola and Victor Caratini as a tandem is definitely going to be much better than a Webster Rivas Victor Caratini, because really it's going to take some load off of Caratini if Nola, comes back and proves that he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, Victor Caratini's been basically our guy. We've
Mhm.
played him the most. We've just, we've played other guys when he needs an off day. It seems like, he's been the best catcher this year. He's been better than Austin Nola just because of, how Austin Nola has gotten so many injuries. But once hopefully Austin Nola, he can finish out his rehab assignment there in El Paso, come back up, and he'll be fine. Because if we can get a 1-2 punch there at catcher, it'd be really great. It seems like whenever Victor Caratini's not catching, um, pitching just doesn't do very good. It seems like I don't know if that's something to do with the catch. It probably has something to do with the catcher. The relationship between pitcher and catcher maybe. Usually it's, before it was Luis Campusano, now it's Webster Rivas, some unexperienced guys in the major league level compared to Victor Caratini. So, you really hope that Austin Nola, we want to take it slow with him, I think. So, it doesn't affect it further along and, prolong this injury, because it's going to be good when he comes back. You can have both guys at 100% almost every start, because they're going to be switching, I imagine, a lot more than what it is now with Victor Caratini doing the majority. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Hopefully he can be good there in El Paso, and he'll come up sooner rather than later with 100% healthy.
And we know that another, aspect of this, we know that Austin Nola is a better hitting catcher than Webster Rivas is. Austin Nola is pretty dang good behind the plate as well.
Yeah,
And to be
100%.
honest, we knew going in on paper, Austin Nola was the starting catcher, and Victor Caratini has been great.
Yep.
I think he's outperformed expectations. Obviously, he had the big moment against Cincinnati. He's hit a grand slam this year against Colorado. He has a few more homers there. The pitching staff, he caught Musgrove's no hitter. Darvish and him are obviously, really close. So I'm not saying that, Caratini wouldn't still have a big role if Nola
No.
returned, but it would definitely help Caratini because he's going to be fresher, and it would help the team overall because Nola's just a better player than Rivas is.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so moving on here, quick second half preview here. What needs to go right? What can't go wrong? It's kind of the same category, obviously. We'll talk about the second half schedule as well. But first off, quick first half overview again. Padres 53 and 40 through their first 93 games. 6 games back in the NL West, behind the Giants and the Dodgers. 3.5 games up on the Cincinnati Reds for that second wild card spot to be the road team in the 1-game playoff. Right now, the Padres would be playing the Los Angeles Dodgers at Chavez Ravine in that 1-game playoff. I'd personally want to win the division, obviously. Guaranteed going into the NLDS, you'd get a best of 5, a minimum of 3 games. In the wild card, who knows? Anything can happen. Am I confident in you, Darvish, against any Dodger pitcher? Of course. But we know that anything can happen. Tatis and Machado could have a 3 strikeout game, each of them, like that one Sunday game before the break. Anything can happen, so you don't want to, bank on a wild card game and then something happens. But right now, I think that the Padres sit in pretty good positioning. Would you want to be in first place? Of course. But at the same time, 6 games back, and we'll get into it in the second half schedule. 6 games back is not a terrible spot to be right now, considering how many games they have against the Giants and the Dodgers, considering that it looks like they're going to get back, guys more healthy, Austin Nola included, considering that the teams in front of them are without guys as well, or they're injury prone. The Dodgers, Bellinger's still, I think, battling some injury. Trevor Bauer's obviously not going to be there. I don't think he should be there the rest of the year.
No, he should never come back to baseball.
Yeah. Well, we don't know what happened yet, but we won't comment on that until that's
for another
done.
time. Yeah.
But they're without guys, and the Giants, like I mentioned, they're injury prone. They have a lot of older guys. Buster Posey didn't play in the All-Star game because he wanted to, be ready for the second half. He's on the IL. The thumb issue, I think. Brandon Crawford.
Along with Evan Longoria, too.
Yeah. Evan Longoria, Brandon Crawford, Brandon Belt. All of those guys
bunch of old guys,
aren't young guys.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not saying that they're going to get hurt, but I think in terms of injuries and all that, the Padres are a much younger team, so they have that advantage just considering age. So considering all those circumstances, I think the Padres are in a very good spot right now. So what are your thoughts on where they stand right now going into this ceremonial second half before we get into what needs to go right for this team to make the playoffs, win the division, stuff like that?
I think it's a really good spot considering what's kind of gone wrong for us. I think I saw this thing on Twitter. They called it the Hurt scale. It was guys compared to league average of the Hurt scale by team, and the Padres are exponentially first right now. So we've done that, and we've got 50 wins with all these guys being hurt, stuff like that. We've gotten swept by the Rockies and lost a series to the Rockies, and we're still a 50-win team. If we win
53, yeah,
exactly, yeah. If you win those, you might be in second. You're getting closer. But considering that, and we're only 6 games back, she said, I think that's a very good spot. Almost ideal compared or considering the circumstances that you've been through. I know that we have an easier schedule coming up compared to the Dodgers and the Giants, so that'll be kind of an advantage. But it's Major League Baseball. You never know what's going to happen. Any team can win on any given night, so you gotta come back strong, and you just gotta play Padres baseball. As if you saw the Stephen Woods interview, you guys talked about this team has not played their best baseball yet, and I agree with that 100%. I don't think we've even come close to playing our best baseball. I think that if we can get guys back healthy, I think if we can maximize our skill set on every given night coming out, that um, we can take this division. I think the Giants are injury prone. They've kind of been given the short stick sometimes, with some key guys getting hurt, but they're still playing good, and that's what the Padres have been doing too. But, I think that we got to kind of, push forward now coming up with this easier schedule. I think that it's our time to, kind of gain some games back.
Yeah. And you mentioned not playing to their ability yet, to their best ability. Part of that is I think that how many games have we played where everyone's in the lineup? All the pitchers are healthy. When
Exactly. Yeah.
Pomerantz is healthy, we haven't had Matt Strom back yet. How many games have we played where the lineup literally consists of everyone? Pham, Tatis, Cronenworth, Machado, Hosmer, Myers, Grisham, Nola. A lot of it's been Caratini or Rivas or Campusano.
Yeah.
So I bet that when we're healthy, when everyone's healthy, I think we've only played 2 or 3 games probably,
Yeah.
to be honest, when everyone's like healthy. And so I think that when that happens, if that happens, hopefully that happens, I don't see why the Padres wouldn't be able to make a run with that easier schedule, which we'll get to. And so, yeah, they're in a good spot right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Again, like I mentioned, do you want to be in first place? Of course. Do you want to be in front of the Dodgers? Of course. But they're winning the season series 7-3 right now against the Dodgers. They have a lot more games coming up. Granted, they will be on the road. We'll get to that. But they're in a good spot right now. And hopefully this rotation comes out healthy, which we'll get to briefly at the end. But yeah, overall, they're in a great spot. Okay, moving on to what needs to go right for this team in the second half, ceremonial second half. I know it's already past the second half point. They already played some of those games, but in terms of after post All-Star break, what this team needs to do right, I have a few things, and then I'll get Jacob's thoughts on that. First off, rotation needs to stay healthy. And I think there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And have more consistency, right? Ryan Weathers, Dinelson Lamet, they need to be healthy. Being healthy could be key, simply because the Padres already are in a hole. Like we mentioned, that 6 games back mark, and it's not that big of a gap, to be honest, between the Reds for that wild card spot.
Nope.
So losing games at the back of the rotation, if you're going to have Reese Canera out there because Weathers and Lamet aren't healthy, that's not going to be ideal. If you're going to have Paddock and Snell not being consistent, that's not going to be ideal. We saw at the end of this first half kind of here, Darvish and Joe Musgrove, they weren't having those clean starts like they had at the beginning of the season. Is that due to maybe carrying the rotation a little bit? I think so. Having to put up innings, Jay Stingler having to keep them in sometimes, because the bullpen just simply is taxed, and you're not going to be, Braves just acquired Jock Peterson. Anyway, just
What?
so, yeah,
Okay.
that was weird. But back to my point,
Yeah.
the bullpen just has been taxed. And so sometimes I think Musgrove and Darvish have had to, carry the load. And so if the back of the rotation isn't healthy or it's not being consistent, that's going to be hard for the bullpen to continue carrying that load the rest of the season. I saw Craig Stammen led all NL relievers in innings pitched going into this break. So that just can't happen if you want them, 100% or close to that in October. Paddock and Snell, like I mentioned, need more consistency. Starting on May 31st when he allowed 5 runs, Paddock just hasn't been as consistent as he's needed to. And like we've mentioned on previous podcasts, it's all been mental. Really, it's all been mental.
Yep.
Stephen Wood said that when I talked to him. Marty Caswell said that when I talked to him. Braden Surprenant said that when I talked to him. Snell hasn't been terrible. But if you look at the run totals, in the game logs and his, the last few, his last few starts, that they don't look terrible. He's given up no runs sometimes, a few of those, but at the same time, you go over to that innings, tab there. That's where it's the consistency comes. So you could say, hey, Ben, he's not giving up paddock runs. He's not giving up 8 runs or 5 runs here or there. He's giving, but at the same time, okay, Paddock's going 5 or 6 innings. Snell is going
Yeah,
4 1/3, and that makes a difference. That adds up. So like I mentioned, the bullpen. I don't think that they need to be pitching this much. They obviously shouldn't be pitching this much this entire year. And so whether that's Reese Kinnear coming in if someone's not healthy, or stepping up, or like I said, Paddock and Snell just being more consistent. And yeah, that's really what it comes down to is the rotation staying healthy, being more consistent leads to the bullpen not being less taxed. Jacob, your thoughts?
yeah. You hit it right on the head. You talk about the bullpen not being taxed. Yeah, I was listening to the interview you had the other day, and you guys said something about the bullpen being taxed so much when it's not Darvish. That puts a huge amount of pressure on your ace, and you can't have that. Uh, Musgrove's he's been good, but he's been lately. He's had a bunch of high pitched innings, and that kind
Some
of
of it,
trend.
some of it's hang on. Some of that though is credit to the hitters. But at the same time, I get what you're saying. Those high pitch counts. He's what I'll say about Musgrove is I still believe in him. He's still a great pitcher. Thought he should be an all-star till the last couple of starts. So he should have been an all-star because the voting had already taken place. But I think that Musgrove, I'm not worried about him, but those high pitch counts, that's what I mean by him not having the cleanest outings is he's kind of having to grind through the starts with those high pitch counts. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That translates into less innings. That's the big thing. Innings is what we need because our bullpen has been taxed so much. And credit to them, they've been the MVP of this team so far in this first half. I think. They've kept us in a bunch of games to where the offense has been able to finally come through and late in the games. Craig Stammen's been lately. He's had games where he struggled, but he's been good. Um, Sorry about my dumb dogs; they're barking back there. Yeah, so the shout out to the bullpen; they've been really good. Hopefully they can keep it up, but you never know. This break's hopefully going to be good for them because we've had a couple games where we struggled. Mark Melanson kind of towards the end of that first half of the year, he kind of blew a couple saves. Sometimes he struggled, but he's still been really good. But yeah, it all comes down to this starting rotation. The starting pitching. They need to log some innings. Be more consistent. Hopefully injuries can avoid this team as they've been all over us this year. Our main guys. Danielson Lamet was pretty much our ace last year, I'd say, in that little 2020 year, and he's been hurt this entire year. It feels like. You know, Drew Pomeranz, our main guy in the bullpen from 2020. He's been hurt pretty much this entire year so far. And it's, and we are in the position we are in. So, moving forward, what needs to go right is injuries 100% and the bullpen, or not the bullpen, the starting rotation being more consistent. That's the two main things I'd say.
Yeah. Another main thing, two guys in particular, in my opinion, Will Myers and Eric Hosmer, just to be average. I talked with Stephen Woods on episode 38 this week, and he was talking about how Will Myers and Eric Hosmer, the Padres don't need those two guys to be Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. They need those two guys to be just average, be their average, be an average ball player. That just hasn't happened. Eric Hosmer has 7 homers. Will Myers, he kind of struggled, at the end of that second half. Just them being average players instead of below average or way below average sometimes in Hosmer's case, will lengthen the lineup. We talk about a lineup not really being healthy at the same time, the whole lineup not being healthy. But at the same time, there's sometimes that I feel like we don't need everyone healthy to beat teams because of how deep the lineup can be when Hosmer and Myers, or one of them, just not both of them struggling at the same time, just one of them being good. So you can't pitch around both or get through the Pham, Tatis, Cronenworth, Machado part of the Grisham part of the lineup, and then go, okay, now I have Hosmer and Myers back to back. Those are easy outs. So just not being Hosmer and Myers being just average players, hitting double digit homers in the second half. I'll buy that. Hosmer only had 7 homers. He came through. We've mentioned it a lot with in late clutch situations against the Dodgers and teams like that. In big situations, obviously the 2-run homer in the reopening day before the Caratini walk off, but he just has not been productive enough in the middle of the lineup. If it was Webster Rivas doing that, okay, because he's not even supposed to be here, but it is a guy earning 144 million. Stephen Woods told me, he's never gonna earn that contract, even
Yeah,
if he
he's not
hits
gonna live up to
70
it.
homers next year,
Yeah.
because there's gonna be someone that's gonna say something negative about him, whether it's his fielding or whatever. So he just has to just be an average player. Him and Myers both, really.
Yeah, 100%. You nailed it on the head. Yeah, he as you said in that interview the other day, he's been statistically like the worst first baseman in the league or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're paying a guy this much money. He's obviously not going to live up to that. It's a ton of money for a guy who's been average at best. And lately he's been below average. But if he can just be average, like you said, along with Will Myers, who is getting a pretty big paycheck too, I'd say. If they can just be average, it'll make this team so much more deadly because, as you said, you don't have to just get through the first 5 and then you're easy sailing, easy breeze. Along with the bats, it's defensively, I think, for Eric Hosmer at least. A bunch of errors there have, cost us a couple games, I'd say, and that goes for the whole team, though, I think, too, especially that infield. With Tatis or this entire team, we were one of the best. I think we have the best defensive potential out of any team in the MLB, and we just have not shown it this year 100%. But if we can just harness that and do it, or just get half of that, I think that this team will just win so many more games. It's crazy, how many games have been costed by defensive errors. Some of it has been pitching, but most of it, I'd say, is either the bats or it's defensively that's cost this team. So it all comes back to a leader, I'd say, in Eric Hosmer. If he can just be average and get his game up, I think that it'll elevate this team to that next level they need to maybe get second or make a push for first in this division.
Yeah, Eric Hosmer right now, I looked at his baseball reference page. He's only a one-time All-Star.
Really? I feel like, or
It
he
said.
must.
That's not the
Wow.
point, but anyway, that just was weird to me.
He was really good in Kansas City, though. That's kind of
Yeah.
weird.
Okay, so in 2021, 301 at bats, 7 homers. That's definitely not what we want. And his WAR is negative 0.1. So that's obviously not. He's literally not playing up to par with a minor league replacement player. I mean,
Yeah.
so that just shows you how much the Padres have actually been able to stay afloat despite that. But also, if we could get that WAR up to like 0.5, that's it.
Yeah.
Just do that. I think that the Padres aren't going to be in terrible hands, really. I mean, to have a negative WAR and you're getting paid 144 million, I just think that fans obviously express their frustration about him. They When he's on the on deck circle, they want to bash him even then. I believe in Eric Hosmer, but at the same time, there's no doubt that he has to step it up. And just really, if the Padres are going to make the postseason, just get going into October, really, because we've seen what this guy can do in big situations. This year is a good example of that. So if he just gets rolling, and then Will Myers, a 0.6 WAR. So like if we could get that up to 1, like it's not, we're not asking these, I don't, at least me, we're not asking these guys to, put up 5 wins or something when they don't even have 1 win each. So what we're saying is just incremental, just get better, just be average. We don't need them to be stars. Get on your little hot streaks, but just be average to make the lineup deeper. Really, I think that's all we're really asking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And that kind of raises a question in my head though. If I think at least for Eric Hosmer, if he can't pick it up, what do you do? Do you make that switch where you put Cronenworth at first and maybe bring in Ha-Sung Kim in the infield? I was just thinking, like he's obviously a guy that's a huge leader on this team. He's got he's the locker room guy. Obviously, that's why I think he's still on the team.
Well,
He's
look,
that
look,
locker
look.
room.
If he wasn't a good leader, they wouldn't have signed him in the first place. But even if he wasn't, and they did sign him, he'd still be on the team. Let's make that clear. I mean, they're not gonna eat that much money, uh, just because of that. I mean, they're gonna still try to write it out. You can't just. I get that. I mean, we're not the New York Yankees all of a sudden. We're still considered, a small to mid market team. It's not like we have unlimited money and we can just waste this entire contract and for him not even to be in the building.
No, I wouldn't say that, but I'd say that he wouldn't have. I don't think that he would have played if. I don't think that he would have played as much if he wasn't that leader on the field. In the field, in the dugout. I think especially this year. He struggled a lot. I'm surprised that Tingler hasn't put Cronenworth at first and Ha-Sung Kim in there at second. Um,
He
kind of
has
switching
every
it up.
he has every once in a while, but if I was Tingler, I wouldn't do that yet. I would do that if we're getting into September and Hosmer's still doing this and we're right there with the Giants and Dodgers for the division. Okay, then you should probably make a change. You should probably they're 2 games back, 3 games back. They have all these divisional games, which we'll get to. Yeah, then I'd probably make a change. But I think you don't, again, with the contract, with his leadership, with the evidence that we've seen over his career that he can do it. I just don't think that the Padres are going to go in that direction right now. Uh, just because you don't want to. What's the risk? If you bench him right now in the middle of the season, do you lose him? Now, if you're going to lose him in September, I'm fine with that. Really, I mean, because look, if you're that much of a selfish player, I'm not saying he is. I know he's not because what we've seen, but if you're that much of a selfish player that you are going to get mad at you getting benched because you're a play with 1 month to go in a pennant race, then I'm sorry, you're in the wrong spot. But right now, I wouldn't do that just because there's too much time left in the season. I think coming off the All-Star break, maybe he had a mental break. Just give him the time, give him a chance. And like I said, if September rolls around and this is still happening, okay, then you can make a change.
Um, See, I don't know about that though, because you think of like a player like Tommy Pham, right? He was benched for I don't know how long, and after he was hitting under 200 to start the year, he had Profar out there, and everyone hated Tommy Pham on Twitter, right? Now I think that's kind of the case with Eric Hosmer though. Everyone's bashing on Hosmer, blah blah blah, and he's not delivering, and I think it's starting to get to him a little bit. Um, and I think that, if you show him that, okay, you can be benched, you give him that kind of motivation to, up his game. Otherwise, this is where you're going to be at, right? We have different options that we can win with, I think. You get him back in that lineup once, maybe because I don't think Ha-Sung Kim is the answer right now at second. I think Cronenworth needs to be at second. Maybe Hosmer then picks it up right then and there. That's kind of the case it did with Pham. I don't know if they're the same person. They're probably not. But, it might be worth a shot if things don't pick up. And I agree with that. I think, you give him a little bit of time after this All-Star break. Give him a month, maybe month and a half. And if it continues, I think that it's time for a switch. And I'm the biggest Eric Hosmer fan there is. I'm the biggest Eric Hosmer fan supporter there is. I love that guy. I have a jersey of his. I root for him. He's been one of my favorite Padres ever since that signing from Kansas City back in 2018. Um, I think that though, if he doesn't pick it up month and a half after this All-Star break, after we come back, I think that it's time for a switch. I think that he needs a little bit of fire lit under him to where he can start picking it up again.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean,
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, I just had to reiterate that in my head.
yeah, but like you mentioned Tommy Pham being benched. Okay, how long was that for?
No idea.
It wasn't. It
Maybe a
wasn't.
week,
It
2
was
weeks.
not very long
But maybe
because
that's all
they
you need.
realized that putting Jerks and Profar out there. Okay, really? What big is that? Really that much of a difference? He wasn't good in the field. It didn't work out. And you mentioned benching Hosmer, and then that might send a message. Oh, you got to play better. Are we kidding? I think he knows he has to play better. I think he knows that the fan base, they might cheer for him when he comes up to the plate or before the game when lineups are announced. But you're telling me that even if, or his wife or something doesn't look at Twitter and sees that, he knows he has to play better. He can compare his days in Kansas City, his year last year to now, and he knows that this is not how he's supposed to be playing. This is not the Eric Hosmer that signed that $144 million contract. I think he knows. I don't think he needs any more motivation. I don't think that I get that the benching might help the team win, but I don't know how long. Again, I think we both agree you need to give him a leash after this All-Star break. And I don't know how long you'd bench him for, um, and expect Ha-Seong Kim to come in and play every day and hit, better than him, where Kim is more of a pinch hitter in my mind.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with that. But I don't think Ha-Seong Kim is the answer right now. I think that Eric Hosmer and Jake Cronenworth is the answer there.
Okay.
But
Okay. Yeah, but if you say Kim's not the answer and Hosmer's still struggling, okay, then where are you going to go? You can't go anywhere. You have Kim locked up for 4 years. You have Hosmer here. That's what I'm saying is it's like Hosmer, that's your option. You have to let him try to get through it.
Okay, yeah, but listen. So Ha-Seong Kim's not the answer, right? We all know that right now.
Yeah.
He's not MLB ready right now, but we're paying him all this money. Might as well have him up there. He's a fan favorite too. But Eric Hosmer, you give him a week on the bench. I think that with Eric Hosmer, I think that he feels that they won't. I know they know. He knows that he can be benched, but I feel like I feel like he knows that he's a starter right now. He's the guy because he knows he's better than Ha-Seong Kim.
Well, because he will be the guy throughout his contract. I don't think.
Okay, so I don't know how to word this. So Eric Hosmer, right? He's struggling right now. He's struggling bad. He's the worst first baseman in MLB statistically. If that continues for a little bit after this, I say you bench him a week, maybe 2, leave Ha-Seong Kim out there, let Eric Hosmer come off as a pinch hitter right now. You try Jake Cronenworth at first because I think that's their plan. I think that's what their plan was after signing Ha-Seong Kim in the first place. After Eric Hosmer's contract, I think that's what they were planning on doing. But that's a whole nother story. You let that happen. I don't think Ha-Seong Kim's going to do that good at second. So maybe after a week and a half, you take him out, you put Eric Hosmer back in, you experiment with that again because Jake Cronenworth needs to be a second. And I think after that, I think that Eric Hosmer will pick it up significantly if he doesn't already. But I just think that if it doesn't, that needs to happen. And that needs to happen sooner rather than later so that he can start picking it up until that October time when we need him to be clutch. We need him to be Mr. Clutch, which he's been this year. Credit to him, not taking that away at all. But we need him to be consistent. We need him to be better defensively. He just needs to get that reiterated back in his mind. I know that it's already, roaming through his mind because of Twitter, but I just feel that if it doesn't pick up, a change needs to happen. Eric Hosmer needs to have an even bigger flame, if there isn't a flame already lit under him, to where he picks it up and shows the fans that he can be not the worst first baseman. You know, he can be average. That's all we need, as we said earlier in this episode. At average, that's all we need.
Yeah, and you mentioned, possibly benching him for a week if, he comes back and things don't go well. What I'm thinking is that whole week that you're mentioning, that was this week. That was his time to just relax, take
Okay.
some time off. That was the time for him, the benching. So I understand that. I get where we both agree that if he's not rolling through September, they're in a pennant race. You have no other option.
Oh,
But
100%. Yeah.
hopefully, the best scenario, this was his week off. This
Yeah,
was
okay.
so that's what my mindset is right now. Hopefully that's his mindset, that he just reset. He didn't touch a bat for a couple days. He, just reset and come back as an average Eric Hosmer. That's literally all we need. Like we mentioned. So and then
Yeah, and the
I
easiest solution then would just be him playing average coming out of the All-Star break. That would completely, avoid all these, propagandas of, putting
it
put
wouldn't
Cronenworth
avoid
at first.
it wouldn't
I
avoid
think
it.
it would.
No, it wouldn't
I
avoid
think
it
it would make it a
because
lot easier though.
yes, but it's not going to avoid it. We know fans, regardless, they have to find someone. If there's
Yeah,
high expectations like this, they're going to find someone. We know it's not going to be Tatis. It's not going to be Manny because no Padre fan on Twitter wants to criticize them. There's not much to criticize them about, but when I feel like they do need to be criticized, then I will. But we know that's not going to happen. Cronenworth's not going to happen. So Grisham's probably not going to happen. So it dwindles to who they're going to attack, and it's if Hosmer, unless he is an all-star this second half, they're going to say something.
yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah.
Here's the final kind of tidbit. What needs to go right? And this is Captain Obvious, but Tatis, Manny, Jake, and Grisham not getting hurt. I mean, when Tatis got hurt, he's obviously with the subluxation when he had COVID. I get they did well, but they were playing struggling teams. And Tatis is the NL MVP. That's what Stephen Woods told me. He was his pick. He's my pick. He's probably your pick right now. He's the
Cy
MVP.
Young is the pitcher award. Let's reiterate that.
He's
Cy
the
Young is for the
MVP.
pitcher.
Yeah, he's the MVP. If he's not there, the Padres don't have a chance of winning the World Series. They're not winning with Ha-Sung Kim as the shortstop. If Manny gets hurt, he's the leader on this team. That's going to be a big blow. If Grisham gets hurt, you want Profar playing center field. We saw how that really bad experiment worked out. So these guys need to stay healthy. Jake Cronenworth, he's been so valuable in that third spot and defensively at second. So these guys just need to stay healthy. And that's that. We don't need to really go into that. That's Captain Obvious. Moving on here, the second half schedule. This is interesting. I saw on Twitter, AC, I think, tweeted out an article about how the second half schedule seems to be lighter, where he's right partially, but then he's also wrong partially. There's 11. Here's what I noticed just looking at the schedule earlier today. 11 off days as opposed to 8 off days in the first half. That will help the bullpen, obviously. That should help the catchers, just staying healthy. That should help everyone staying healthy. The Padres will have ample opportunity to make up that NL West. If they don't win the NL West, if injuries come up, okay, maybe that's the excuse. But other than that, then they just did not beat the Giants and the Dodgers in the second half of the season. I think that's pretty simple. They have 9 games against the Dodgers. 3 are at home, only 3. 6 are on the road, including their second to last series of the season. They have 10 games against the Giants. 3 are at home, 7 are on the road, including that road series, 3-game series to end the regular season that might end up being huge to decide either the wild card positioning or the division. 19 in total between the Dodgers and the Giants. So 19 games between 2 teams that are in front of you right now. There is literally no excuse.
That's huge.
There's
It's just
there's
yeah.
no excuse. Those will be the biggest games of the second half, obviously, for the Padres' sake. Um, and those come after the easy part of the schedule. Um, which August 6th through the 18th is pretty much the easy part, in my view. All those matchups, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, and the Miami Marlins. Um, as for the home road split in the second half, 40 road games, 29 home games. So obviously that's not going to play into the Padres' favor in terms of that. First half on the road, they were 20 and 21, 48.8% win percentage. So they have 40 road games where they had a losing record in the first half. So that's not ideal. The 29 home games, obviously the Padres played a lot better there. They definitely fed off the fans when it was a full building. 33 and 19 is 63.5% winning percentage in the first half at home. So they're going to have to really take advantage of those home games because there's going to be a lot more, 11 more road games than home games. We talked about the soft schedule, but so let's talk about that real quick. The soft schedule, obviously, like we talked about, Diamondbacks, Rockies, Marlins in that beginning of August to mid-August period. That's going to be a spot where the Padres are going to have to capitalize. Hopefully, Austin Nola's back then, but there's no doubt that you have to win all of those series.
100%. You have to at least win all the series. You hope for a couple sweeps in there too. But every time I say that, they end up losing a series to the Rockies. I've said, let's sweep the Rockies twice now, and we've gotten swept by them, and we've lost a series. So it seems like the Rockies are a little kryptonite. You
Hopefully,
got
they
to
don't
win all
have
those.
Trevor
Yeah,
Story then.
yeah. Hopefully, he'll be traded by then. As the trade seems to be popping off, Jock Peterson, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, just in
That
time,
Acuna
just in time
replacement.
for them to play us.
Yeah, so that'll be kind of fun to see. But yeah, just you got to win the softer part of the schedule. I know it's the MLB. I know I've said that earlier. It's the MLB. Any team can win any given night. But you got to show up and you got to win these games against these sub 500 teams, especially against the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. To be specific, I mean that's a division team. Those are two teams that shouldn't even dream about the playoffs right now. Yeah, you just got to win those games 100%. I don't there's not much to say about that.
Yeah. So the real thing to talk about is the September stretch. That's definitely the hardest month I think I've ever seen on a Padres schedule.
Yeah.
Starting September 3rd, they have 3 against the Houston Astros, who lead the American League West. They're a playoff team. Then they have 2 against the Angels, who have the most talented player on the planet in Shohei Ohtani. And Trout's probably going to be healthy then.
Yeah, they got
have
a good team now.
3-3 at Los Angeles against the Dodgers, and back-to-back, and then another 3 against the San Francisco Giants. So that's the 3-3 that I was just saying. Obviously, both of them are ahead of us in the division. Then they have 3 at St. Louis. We know Nolan Arenado loves playing against the Padres. They have a talented team. They haven't performed up to expectations, but they still are a talented team.
They're going to want some revenge too after we swept them with our AAA El Paso team.
Yep. So 3 against St. Louis. Doesn't get any easier. Then we have 3. Yes, it's at home, but there's 3 against the Giants, ahead of us in the division. Then 3 against the Braves. Yes, Acuna's out, but they still have the reigning NL MVP. They still have Ozzie Albies. They still have plenty of all-stars on that roster.
And now Jock Peterson.
They have more than suited to be able to beat us. Then after that, another 3-3, 3 games at Dodger Stadium, and then 3 games at Oracle Park against the Giants to end the season, both ahead in the division. So that is a huge stretch right there. Starting September 3rd, they're not going to win every series that they play then, and that's obviously clear. So that's how important that soft schedule is from pretty much here to that August 18th date. Not all of it soft, obviously. They play Oakland. That's a good team. Washington, Atlanta. They're still talented rosters, but they're not playing division. They're not playing the Dodgers, the Giants, like they will heavily in August, late August, and then September. So these games, that September stretch is obviously going to make or break the season. But it wouldn't hurt to win these games before then.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the rest of this season, makes or breaks it. Obviously, you want to win the softer schedule so you can get that confidence up. You're feeling good going into this. That stretch is just insane. That's an insanely hard schedule, but it's an opportunity. That's all you really need. When you play a sport, when you in life, is an opportunity. And the Padres have a golden opportunity there to end the season. Against all these really good teams. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, 100%. Especially against the Dodgers and the Giants. I know a lot of them are road games, but you should be able to win anywhere. I know that we struggled earlier this year in the road, but you got to be able to win on the road to, be where you want to be this year. I think that the Padres are a serious World Series contender. I think that we can make a serious playoff push, but it really all depends on how the end of this season unfolds, especially that last tough stretch to end the year. I think that it's just a golden opportunity for the Padres to show if they have the tools to make the playoffs, win the division. It's just a really good opportunity, and hopefully that they can seize it and take advantage of it.
Yep. Kevin Acee tweeted that Tucupita Marcano is in Washington right now. A spot is going to be open tomorrow. I don't know what spot that is. I don't think they're getting rid of Jorge Mateo.
Hopefully they do. That'd be nice.
No, I know, but I don't think they would for Marcano. They're both not
No.
great bats.
Oh, yeah.
And Hassan Kim's hair color is different, I guess, according to AC.
Okay.
Nothing to do with what we were talking about, but I just saw that tweet come by. Yeah, you hit it on the head. Pretty much the first half of the second half, games need to be won. Second half of the season, this is where your season's going to be made. A bunch of games against the Giants and Dodgers. No excuse if you don't win the division. It's because you didn't win these games. That's as simple
golden
as that.
opportunity. Mm-hmm.
We're starting 6 games back, so you're already putting yourself in a hole, but you can climb quickly out of that hole with wins against those teams. So Padres, like we mentioned, have to win those games in the first half of that second half of the season. Have to be healthy in September. That's the only way they're going to get through that September stretch. Anywhere over 500 in that stretch, I'd be happy.
Yeah, that's a W.
A lot of playoff.
Only if you win that soft schedule, though. You have to win that soft schedule first.
Yeah. And didn't want to do a deadline needs, or predictions yet. As we've mentioned, the rotation's kind of up in the air. We don't know if everyone's fully healthy, and so it wouldn't make sense to do that. Like some people are right now, across Major League Baseball, when the Padres have a lot of injuries going around, or injury questions going around. So we'll have to see this next week or so play out, see if Nola gets back, stuff like that, before we do that episode. But any last thoughts? I think that we closed it out pretty good. Obviously, we discussed Hosmer at length. That's going to be a topic of discussion in the second half to see if he can get going. Yep. Same with Myers.
Yeah.
But anything else?
No, I think we hit it.
Did we get any Did we get any mailbag?
I didn't see any on the Instagram. No.
All right. Cool.
I didn't see any.
All right. Well, we'll obviously keep you updated on the social channels if anything changes about tomorrow's series. Obviously, with COVID kind of spreading across the league, starting with the Yankees, Red Sox, obviously with the All-Star game, Judge in protocol, and he was obviously around some Padres. So keep you posted on that. Got this national series coming up, got the Braves series, then the Marlins, and before they come home at the end of July. But so 3 games against the Nats here. We'll come to you after that if the series is played and everything like that. But it's been fun talking today. Ben Fadden, Jacob Zimmermann signing off until next time. Let's go Padres.
Yeah.